They called it Silver Hollow, though little silver remained. Just rusted tin rooftops clinging to quiet cabins, their paint stripped bare by decades of wind and winter. In this forgotten black Canadian village, the air held its breath, as if waiting for something, or mourning something already lost. Abandoned tools lay buried in frostbitten fields. Laundry swayed on tired lines, clinging to memory. Smoke curled from a few chimneys, fragile as prayer. And all around, the forest stood thick and watchful, cloaked in fog. Time did not pass here, it lingered. A place paused between yesterday's sorrow and tomorrow's silence. Before Norah came, the heart of Silver Hollow beat faintly, a rhythm dulled by hunger and years. The dirt road ran through like a dry riverbed, cracked and empty. Elders sat on porches with blank stares, their shawls pulled tight against the wind. Children peeked from behind doorways, unsure whether to laugh or vanish. The gardens lay bare, just rows of brittle dirt and forgotten seeds. Nothing grew but quiet. Fog drifted like a ghost between cabins, wrapping everything in a veil of stillness. And yet, deep beneath the silence, something waited. Something remembered. They were tired, yes, but they were never broken. The people of Silver Hollow had roots deeper than any frost. Grandmothers whose hands had braided fields into song. Fathers who had walked north through snow for freedom's promise. Children barefoot in the cold, but still holding bundles of sweetgrass like treasure. A family stood before a weathered home, not just surviving, but holding one another in the light. Eyes that had seen too much still shone with a quiet fire. Through sorrow, through silence, they had endured. And that, too, was a kind of magic. They didn't approach her at first. Just watched, half hidden behind frost-covered trees, giggling into mittens too big for their hands. Her song drifted through the snow like a secret, and they listened. Not with fear, but with wonder. Her shawl glowed green against the white, and something about her, the way she moved, the way birds didn't scatter, felt like a page out of a storybook they'd never heard but somehow knew. The forest shimmered around her, and the children, wide-eyed and wordless, began to believe. They say the fog rolled in first, thick and silver as spilled milk, curling around the black spruce like a secret. And out of that mist came a woman, barefoot, wrapped in a shawl the color of moss after rain. Her wide straw hat was stitched with feathers and wild herbs, sage, cedar, and something older. She didn't say a word, just walked, staff tapping the earth like she was knocking on a door. And though no one had seen her before, the land, it seemed to recognize her. The trees leaned close, the ferns unfolded, even the silence stepped aside. That was the first time Silver Hollow breathed in years. With each step she took, the soil changed. What had been frozen, lifeless, cracked like a broken pot, began to stir. Her driftwood staff sank into the ground like it was sinking into memory. Then, as if the earth itself exhaled, roots curled upward. Vines spiraled from nowhere. Wildflowers blinked open like they'd heard their names. And birds, quiet for seasons, watched in reverence from the trees. Norah didn't speak. She simply was. And the land, long forgotten, answered her like a child running into its mother's arms. At first, they watched her from behind curtains and stove-warmed windows. The preacher's wife said she was a witch. The storekeeper called her foolish. But one morning, a boy followed her, barefoot and curious. Then his grandmother. Then the preacher's wife. aprons still damp from bread making. Together, they knelt beside Norah in the frostbitten dirt. They didn't plant for harvest. Not at first. They planted for memory. Sweetgrass, collards, strawberries. They whispered stories into the soil and laughed like they remembered joy. And the ground, long hardened by sorrow, began to listen. There was a place she returned to, a hidden grove beneath leaning pines. Alone, she stood there at twilight, staff in hand, eyes closed, and she sang. Not hymns, not church songs, but something older, deeper. Her voice was low and rough like riverstone, rising like the scent of rain on dry leaves. The trees leaned in. The snow fell in silence, and the air shimmered as if time itself had paused to listen. That night, the earth did not sleep, it remembered. They came in the dead of night, men in white robes, torches high, fear in their mouths masked as rage. They thought they could silence what they didn't understand. But Norah did not run. She planted her staff into the frozen ground and raised her voice. The air shifted. Her song cracked the sky open like thunder on a still lake. The torches stuttered, froze mid-air, then bloomed into blossoms of red and gold, petals falling where fire should have raged. The men turned to run, but the trees moved too. And what they feared wasn't magic, it was truth. They fled, those men, tripping over roots, choking on snow, but the path behind them was gone. Trees closed like gates. Branches grew across footprints. Moss swallowed every trace. In the distance, her silhouette stood still, wide hat aglow, unmoved. They never returned. Some said the forest had cursed them. Others said they'd only seen their own reflection, a mirror of what fear can do. But one thing was certain. Silver Hollow belonged to the earth again. And the forest does not forget. Years passed. Seasons turned. Norah was never seen again. Some say she became the forest. Others believe she walks beneath the ground, her songs feeding the roots. But if you wander the old trails of Silver Hollow, you might find a strange thing. A circle of flowers blooming in the snow. Colors too bright for winter. And if you close your eyes and stand very still, you'll hear it. Her voice in the wind, singing to the seeds, to the soil, to the soul, waking the world back to life. It began with hands, calloused, trembling, unafraid. Norah knelt in the thawing earth, and one by one, they joined her. Men in suspenders, women in bright head wraps, elders who remembered harvests long gone, children with muddy fingernails and bright laughter. They planted not just collards and sweetgrass, but memory, roots of who they were and who they might become. The soil, warmed by their faith, began to glow. Sweet strawberries curled from the frost like small miracles. It wasn't a garden. It was resurrection.